So I used to work in a restaurant and it would kill me when I would see people just like guzzling water while they're eating. That is just so bad for your digestion. Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Brittany. I'm a health coach and nutritionist, and so far in this channel we've been focusing on using therapeutic elimination diets like the low FODMAP diet to manage irritable bowel syndrome. So if you're completely new here and you have no idea what the low FODMAP diet is, I will just say really quick that it has a 75% success rate for helping people with IBS manage their symptoms. If you want a more in-depth explanation on that, I would recommend checking out my low FODMAP diet explained video. I will link it down in the description for you. You're definitely going to want to take a look at that next. Okay, so like I was saying, we've been focusing mainly on the dietary modification aspect of managing IBS, and today I want to take a step back to focus on the lifestyle aspect of managing IBS, which in my opinion is equally as important. I know I haven't shared a whole lot about my story on this channel, but I was diagnosed with IBS in 2009, so I have over a decade of experience dealing with these kinds of issues, and I want to share that knowledge with you here today. So stay tuned because I'm going to be sharing with you my top tips for improving digestive health. I am going to be trying to do more informational videos like this, so if this is the kind of content that you enjoy seeing, give this video a thumbs up. And if you are interested in seeing more videos where I share my exact strategies for dealing with certain digestive issues like not only IBS, but also like SIBO, leaky gut, gut dysbiosis, and even fibromyalgia, then you want to make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss when those videos come up. I also really quickly want to give a shout out to my newest Patreon supporters, P. Weir, Michael Margarefta, and Chuck Rahowski. Thank you guys so much for supporting my channel. I really appreciate it, and it really goes a long way to helping me create high quality content for you guys on a consistent basis. And it really helps me to help more people, so I really appreciate that. And if you guys want to help support my channel as well, then I will leave a link down below in the description to my Patreon page. Okay, and one last order of business, I just want to say to stay tuned to the end of this video because we are doing a giveaway today and I'm super excited about it. So stay tuned to the end so you can figure out how to enter into the giveaway. So now that we've gotten all that out of the way, let's get straight into our tips. So this first group of tips is going to focus on not exactly what you're eating because that's what we've been focusing on with the recipe tutorials and the low FODMAP diet. But this is going to focus on how you're eating. So tip number one is to slow down and chew your food. Now, digestion starts in the mouth. We have a digestive enzyme in our saliva called amylase that actually helps to break down carbohydrates in our mouth. So we did this experiment in school. I don't know if you guys ever did this, but you actually take like a tiny piece of bread and you put it on your tongue and you just leave it there. And after a few minutes, it actually starts to taste sweet. And this is because the amylase in your saliva is breaking down the complex carbohydrate molecules into their simple sugar components. So I think that's a really good way to illustrate how carbohydrates break down into sugars. It's a very tangible experience. I actually don't know if this works with gluten-free bread, but I'm gonna have to try it the next time I make a sandwich or something. So like I said, the amylase in your saliva helps to break down your food. So the more that you are chewing your food well and really coating it with your saliva, the more you're jump-starting your digestion. You also want to slow down because it takes 20 minutes for your body to tell your brain that you're full. And your body does this in a couple of different ways. So you have the vagus nerve that runs along the back of your esophagus down to behind your stomach. And when your stomach expands from eating, it actually presses on that nerve and it signals to your brain that you're full. The other thing that it does is it manufactures hormones in your stomach that react to you eating food, right? And then once you get a certain level of these hormones into your brain, then it signals to your body that you're full. So I think it's super important to not overeat, and which is why it's important to not eat super fast, because when you overeat with IBS, you're going to have indigestion. It doesn't matter if you are eating the perfect low FODMAP meal, doesn't matter. If you overeat, you're gonna cause indigestion. So really be mindful and take your time, slow down. I find that I have an easier time doing this when I'm eating with other people because I'm actually like enjoying myself. But when I'm just in the mode of like, oh, I've been working all day, now I'm coming home and I'm making dinner and I'm just like really focusing on trying to get dinner on the table, then I sit down to eat and I'm still like on task. I'm like focusing on eating. So I just have to take a minute to like sit back and breathe and relax, which is another thing that it's going to help to activate your parasympathetic nervous system. So, which is your rest and digest nervous system, right? So all day when I'm working and I'm like working on getting things done, that's my sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight. And then I want to sit down and relax and be able to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest. You'll see that this is going to be a theme for this video. So again, just slow down, chew your food, be mindful, and you'll be okay. Oh, it's so hot. Okay, so my next tip is to stay hydrated, but not while you eat. So I used to work in a restaurant and it would kill me when I would see people just like guzzling water while they're eating. That is just so bad for your digestion. When you're guzzling water, like while you eat, you're actually diluting your stomach acid. Stomach acid helps to break down your food. It also signals to your pancreas to release bile and digestive enzymes into your small intestine to, again, help you break down food. And it also is going to sterilize the contents of your stomach. So it's going to kill any of like bacteria or viruses or parasites that you've ingested. And it's actually one of the first line defenses of our immune system. So stomach acid is super important. If you are diluting your stomach acid, or if you have weak stomach acid, or if you're taking antacids, then this is actually going to leave you open to developing an infection. And it's also going to cause you to have indigestion. So don't guzzle water while you eat and dilute your stomach acid. The other thing that having a weak stomach acid can do is that you have your esophagus and your stomach, right? Right in between there, you have something called the lower esophageal sphincter, which is a valve that separates the contents from your stomach from going back up into your esophagus. In order to keep this valve closed, you need to have a pH of between 2 and 3 in your stomach, which is the normal pH level of stomach acid. So when you guzzle water and you're adding water, which is a pH of 7, to your stomach acid, which is a pH of between 2 and 3, you're bringing that pH level up too high. And that's actually going to cause your lower esophageal sphincter to hang open. And that's when you're going to be getting things like heartburn and acid reflux. And you can even get like backsplash of like your stomach contents up into your esophagus, which is like gross. Like I don't want that for you guys. So just like don't guzzle water while you eat. Oh, and here's another bonus tip for the people who feel like they can't drink water at all, because whenever they take like a sip of water, it makes them nauseous. So it is going back to the weak stomach acid, because like I said, even that small amount of water is diluting it to a point that it is leaving your lower esophageal sphincter open, and then you're like feeling nauseous and like kind of like feeling like I don't know, it's like your stomach feels like it's like sloshing around, like it doesn't feel nice. So my tip for that is actually to add lemon to your water, because we're adding acid to the water, which is neutral. So we're bringing the pH down so that it doesn't disturb the pH of our stomach very much. So I would really try that. I usually add about half a lemon to about 32 ounces of water, but just experiment and see like what level of lemoniness you like in your water. It is very helpful, and it's like, it tastes good and it feels a little fancy. So also when I say don't drink while you eat, I typically think that includes 30 minutes before you eat to 30 minutes after you eat. Like that is the window where you don't want to be guzzling water. If you need to take like a couple of sips here and there while you eat, like that's fine. But you just want to make sure not to be like guzzling it. Okay, so for our next tip is to limit caffeine and alcohol. I know this is a tough one, but there's really no way around it. Caffeine and alcohol are gut irritants. It's the sad truth. So I know that when I was having a really tough time with my digestion and really doing like everything I could to improve it, I did give up both caffeine and alcohol. And it was definitely the right decision for me. It really helped to increase the rate at which I was healing. But now that my stomach is a little bit better, I've had a couple years of healing, I can push myself a little bit more. So I do drink caffeine probably about like 4 to 5 days a week. I do try to not have it every single day. That way I can give my body an opportunity to to heal the irritation that has been done, because like I said, caffeine and alcohol are gut irritants. It helps me to keep my like tolerance level to caffeine low. That way I don't need to continually like drink more and more to have the same effect. I have switched from coffee to tea, and I think that's mainly because my body just doesn't handle the actual like coffee bean very well. Similarly to how my body can be sensitive when I have large amounts of chocolate, because I think like as a plant, coffee and chocolate are very similar. If you do find that coffee has really been irritating your stomach, but you don't want to give up caffeine completely, it can be hard, like I know, you might want to switch to tea. So I typically drink like black tea, green tea, oolong, and yerba mate, and all of those are just fine for me. I do feel like black tea can tend to like cause a little bit of irritation on days that my stomach isn't its best. So those days I do try to pick something with a lower caffeine content like green tea or yerba mate. So that's just something you want to be aware of. And when it comes to alcohol, I haven't like fully given up alcohol. I do drink probably like a couple of drinks, like maybe a couple of times a month. I try to reserve it to like when it's worth it, And again, I try not to do it all the time so that my body does have a chance to catch up and repair the damage that has been done. So also when I have had a couple of drinks, the next morning, I won't have caffeine at all, just to help my body take a break and heal that irritation that has been done. When I do choose to drink alcohol, I am very picky about the types of alcohol that I do consume. I usually stick to hard alcohol, hard clear liquor that's been mixed with lemon or kombucha. I can't do any really syrupy mixers because they're full of high fructose corn syrup, which is going to be malabsorbed in the small intestine and cause digestive issues. So that is something that you need to watch out for. I also try to stay away from beer because it is fermented wheat, and my body has a problem with wheat. There are a few gluten-free beers now. Rupert, I'm gonna murder you. There are quite a few gluten-free beers that you can try now. There's one that I tried recently. It's called Glutenberg, and it's fermented millet and corn. And that one was actually pretty good. I didn't sit there and drink the whole thing. I used it in a recipe, in a lamb stew recipe, which is coming out soon. So make sure to stay tuned for that. It's super good. I also really like to drink hard kombucha. So it's fermented and has a natural alcohol similarly to beer, but it's not fermented wheat. So that's another good alternative to beer. And I myself am not really a wine drinker, but I know a lot of you are. And I find that wine can actually be really difficult for me to drink. If my stomach's in a good place, I can have maybe 1 or 2 glasses at the most. But sometimes if my stomach's not in a great place, I'll have 1 sip and it just doesn't sit right. And I'm I shouldn't do that. So it really just depends on what your body is telling you in the moment. And like I said before, if you're serious about really changing your digestive health, then you probably just want to cut out alcohol and caffeine for the most part. And it's not forever. It could be temporary. It really just depends on what your body allows you to do. And at this point, your body might not be willing to let you do very much, but once you let it heal for a year or so, you will be able to eat and drink and just consume way more things than you are able to do right now. Trust me. Okay, so my next tip is to limit snacking. Now this is for people who are like grazers, how they eat something and then a couple hours later they eat something else, a couple hours later they eat another little something, and they're just like constantly like snacking all day. If you're a person like that and you're having digestive issues, what's really going to help you is to just like stop snacking all day. Because when you're eating all day, you are not giving your body the chance to rest and heal itself. Because if it's constantly digesting, it never has time to do any of like the healing or the maintenance that your body is designed to do when it's not digesting food. So for example, we have this function called the migrating motor complex, which is similar to peristalsis, which we talked about in the FODMAPs explained video. It's basically a smooth muscle contraction that's going from the beginning of your digestive system all the way to the end. And it's just moving things in one direction to clean it out. It's sort of like a street sweeper, kind of like cleaning everything, right? But this is activated after 4 hours of not eating. So if you're constantly eating, you're not going to activate your migrating motor complex. So again, stop snacking. This is super important for people who are actually dealing with SIBO, which is a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And so that's when the bacteria that normally lives in our large intestine actually can start to grow in other places like the small intestine. The migrating motor complex is something that is naturally going to move that bacteria back in the right place. So make sure you're leaving at least 4 hours in between your meals. I typically like to do 5 or 6, just to make sure that I am getting that like cleansing action going. And I do have more tips and information about SIBO and gut dysbiosis in general, but I'm not going to get into those today. It's a bit complicated, so I'm going to save that for another video. Okay, so my next tip is to eat intuitively. Now, to me, eating intuitively means to be very mindful and pay attention to what your body is actually trying to tell you, and then using that information to make more informed decisions about things that you are eating or the way that you're eating. So for me, that means choosing foods that are easily digestible for my body. Choosing white rice over brown rice, even though we're taught that brown rice is healthier for you. And while it does technically have more nutrients, it's harder to digest. So if I can't digest the rice, then it doesn't matter if it has more nutrients because I'm not going to be able to get them. You know what I mean? And I find that there are a lot of foods like that we're taught are healthy for us, but are actually working against us when it comes to digestion issues. And I'm thinking about doing a whole video on that because it's like a huge topic. So if that's something that you're interested, let me know and I will work on that video for you guys. But another thing that eating intuitively means to me is like choosing foods and vegetables that are fully cooked rather than eating raw vegetables or salads. Because raw vegetables and salads can be actually really hard to digest. I do have salads in like the warmer months when I feel like my digestion is stronger. I feel like generally, I don't know, this is weird, but I feel like in the winter, my digestion just isn't as like strong, and I actually gravitate more towards soups, which is great because like it's cold anyway. But I think like the weather really does have an effect on our bodies in that way. But that's just how I feel about it. I don't have like any actual evidence for that. Intuitive eating for me also means that I'm choosing to eat a lot of meat and eggs in my diet because my body tends to have a problem with plant matter. So whenever I've had super bad like digestive issues, it's always been due to plants. I've also had a lot of nutritional deficiencies in the past due to digestive problems, which is another reason why I like to eat eggs and meat and chicken and pork and all of that, because meat is very nutrient dense. I know you see like these things on Instagram that say like, oh, 100 calories of broccoli and 100 calories of steak both have the same amount of iron, which might technically be true, but 100 calories of steak is like 3 bites, whereas 100 calories of broccoli is like 3 cups. And that is like that is a lot to digest, especially of something that is very fibrous like broccoli. So you might want to keep that in mind when you're deciding what the optimal diet is for you. And I know it can be difficult to develop this intuition, which brings me to my next tip, which is to keep a food journal. Like I know, like everyone needs to keep a food journal when you are really trying to pin down what the best diet is for you, because you do not remember what you ate last week. I can't remember what I ate last week. You really need to be consistent when collecting this data so that you can go back. Once you have collected a few weeks of data, you can go back and try to identify certain patterns. You might notice that, oh, I always have a stomach ache when I eat this food. It is tremendously helpful keeping a food journal. But the other thing that you do need to keep in mind when you are analyzing the data is to stay objective and to keep an open mind, because like I was mentioning before, you might realize that a lot of foods that you think are healthy for you, your body doesn't actually like. And I tell people this all the time, that I don't make the rules, my body makes the rules. And keeping a food journal and analyzing that data is going to be the best way for you to figure out what the rules are for your body. So I am a person that loves notebooks, so I like to physically write down my food journal. I usually do it just at the end of the day. I kind of write down in sequence everything that I ate, and then if I ingested anything that wasn't water, like tea, I'll put that there. And then I'll also like keep track of how much water I've had that day also. But then I also keep track of any symptoms that I might develop. I don't want to go too in depth into this here because it can be complicated, but I do want to do a video in the future of like exactly how I set up my food journal and how I analyze it, because like I said, this is going to be key for you guys. So stay tuned for that. And again, I just want to emphasize that consistency is super necessary when it comes to keeping your food journal, because if you keep like 3 days worth of data and then you like fall off the wagon and then you come back a week later and do like another 3 days and then fall off the wagon again, come back, you know what I mean? Like you're missing, like you can't tell anything from that. Like if you have 3 days here, 3 days there, like you can't analyze that for like accurate, like patterns. So make sure to be consistent. Okay, so once you have kept your food journal, you have all the data, you've analyzed it, and now you kind of have like a few things that you want to try to eliminate from your diet and see if they make you feel better. You kind of have like a direction that you feel like you want to go in. That's great. But for the next tip is to make one change at a time. With the whole theme of being very scientific about this is that you want to change only one variable at a time. Like say you are suspecting that both soy and potatoes are causing you problems. So you eliminate them both from your diet and you feel better, right? But you don't know whether it was the soy or the potato. It's fine to eliminate them both at the same time so you can just like get that symptom management going and start to feel better. But you want to make sure that you reintroduce them one at a time so that you can tell which each food is doing to you and like what each food has an effect on your body or what kind of effect they have on your body. So just be mindful of that. The other thing is that when you start to add supplements and other kinds of things into your diet that is supposed to have some sort of benefit, if you add them all at the same time, you won't truly know what is doing what. Just try to be mindful of that and try to really only make one change at a time so that you can minimize the variables and be scientific about it. So those are my tips for how to eat. And now we're going to shift into tips for helping you to manage stress, because IBS is a stress-related condition. And like I mentioned earlier, your body can get stuck in a state of stress, in a state of fight or flight. And when you do that, when your body gets stuck in that state, it's actually going to be suppressing things like your digestion, your immune system, hormone production, all things like that. Things that the body considers to be non-essential. Because when you're stuck in fight or flight mode, your body is literally focusing on just like surviving, staying alive, and reserving energy to defend yourself when an attack comes. While that is super helpful, like if you are going to be attacked, it's not very helpful if you are stuck in this chronic stress state and just going throughout life. I definitely got stuck into this kind of like chronic stress, chronic inflammation kind of state, and it was awful. And these next tips are things that I did to kind of help my body get out of that. So my first lifestyle tip to help reduce your stress and to activate your parasympathetic nervous system is to walk outside for 30 minutes a day, at least 5 days a week. Now, there are multiple things that walking outside is going to do for you. Obviously, it's just good for us to move our bodies. I feel like most of us these days are living a very sedentary life and actually like not even moving even less since that we are quarantined and like stuck in our houses. 30 minutes of movement a day is really going to help you. It's going to help reduce your stress, especially if you walk outside. People who have been surveyed after walking out in nature versus walking indoors on a treadmill reported higher levels of stress reduction. I mean, that makes complete sense to me. I know that when I walk outside, I definitely feel like my body just like lets go of stress much easier. So I really recommend trying to do that. And I think 30 minutes we can all find 30 minutes in our schedules for ourselves. And it's a very simple but powerful thing that we can all do for our health. So walking outside for 30 minutes a day is not only going to give you more movement in your life and it's going to increase your stress reduction, but it's also going to give you 30 minutes of sun exposure a day, which is super important, and I don't think enough of us get enough sun exposure. When the sunlight hits our skin, there's actually cholesterol in our skin that our body uses the sunlight to convert to vitamin D. And your body can only do this without sunscreen on it. My life right now, like I don't get a lot of sun exposure. So when I'm walking outside for 30 minutes a day, I make sure that I'm exposing parts of my body that don't have sunscreen on them, like my chest and my arms and things like that, so that I can really get that good vitamin D. I do usually like wear makeup, so there's a little bit of sunscreen in there. But even on days that I don't wear makeup, I don't really, like, I know a lot of people are like, don't ever go outside without sunscreen, it's bad for your skin. But I have olive skin, so 30 minutes in the sun is not that big a deal for me, especially when it's like in the afternoon. If I'm gonna be out in the sun all day, like in the middle of the afternoon, of course I'm gonna wear sunscreen. But when I'm walking for 30 minutes at like 5:30 when I get off of work, no, I'm not gonna wear extra sunscreen. But if you are super fair and you know you're gonna burn after 15 minutes in the sun, then obviously wear sunscreen. But I would recommend to choose the lowest SPF possible. And that's because the higher SPFs are gonna block more of the sun rays. And you want to, like I said, you want to let a little bit of that sun in to help convert your cholesterol into vitamin D. And there's also like I was reading this study, it's a very interesting correlation of the introduction of SPF into society in the 50s correlates with increased levels of vitamin D deficiency. And you know, we've all been very concerned about getting enough levels of vitamin D recently to help boost our immune system. Okay, my next tip is to do yoga. So I really love yoga. I feel like it really vibes with me and my personality. But I also really like yoga because it is a low intensity, it can be a low intensity exercise that really helps to boost your digestive system by activating your parasympathetic nervous system. There are actually quite a few different yoga sequences that are specifically for digestion that I really love, mostly by Yoga with Adriene. If you guys have seen her videos, like I love them. They're great for people who are just getting into yoga. They're very easy to follow. They're great for people of all different skill levels, but they're also challenging enough for people who have been doing yoga for a few years. So I would really recommend her videos. I will link a couple down below for you guys. I also really like yin yoga, which is a slower form of yoga. And I feel like that's because when you're doing the type of yoga that's very flowy and you're like up and down and up and down and all the time, it can actually like really make me feel like I want to barf. And so that is not something that I want to be doing when I'm already having digestive problems. So I would really recommend checking out yin yoga. And that kind of brings me into my next tip, which is to keep your exercise at a low to moderate level. When we exercise, our body produces cytokines. There are two different cytokines. There are pro-inflammatory cytokines and anti-inflammatory cytokines. So when you do a low to moderate exercise, low to moderate intensity level exercise, you're actually going to increase your anti-inflammatory cytokines. And if you do a very intense workout, you're going to be increasing the pro-inflammatory cytokines. So if you're constantly doing like super intense workouts and you're increasing all of those pro-inflammatory cytokines, you can actually get stuck in a state of inflammation, which is not good. So that's why I really recommend doing something that is more on the moderate side. So that way, well, I do the lighter intensity when I'm walking, but then when I'm like doing yoga or like body weight exercises, I try to go for that moderate intensity so that I'm still getting the anti-inflammatory benefits while still pushing my body a little bit and like pushing my fitness level forward. You know what I mean? But if you're a person who is used to doing high intensity exercise and you feel fine and you don't feel like it triggers any sort of symptom flare up, then continue to do that. But for people who are like, oh, I'm gonna get healthy this year, I'm gonna start eating better and I'm gonna start exercising, even though they don't like currently exercise at all, if they go straight to like a high intensity HIIT workout, then they are going to trigger a flare up of symptoms. Really be mindful of that. And you kind of have to be gentle and kind to your body in lots of different ways when you have IBS. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so my next tip for managing stress is to meditate, which it sounds easy, but meditation is actually really hard. So when I meditate, the way that I like to explain it is that you're not trying to fully clear your mind and not think about anything. I don't think that that's a very helpful way to think about meditation. But what I do feel like is helpful is you kind of just let your thoughts come up, and as they come up, you're not judging yourself for having those thoughts. You're kind of keeping these thoughts at like an arm's length. You're dissociating from them, and you are just letting them come up and then letting them fade away. And then another thought will come up and then it will fade away. Sort of like how clouds enter the sky and then like pass. You know what I mean? A thing that you might want to do is like, oh, these types of thoughts are coming up for me a lot. Like, why is that? And then not judging yourself for getting upset at yourself for having those kinds of thoughts, but kind of just like exploring that a little bit further. I think that's a really helpful way to meditate. But if you are new to meditation, this will probably be a bit difficult for you, and you probably want to start out with a guided meditation. Now, there are tons of guided meditations here on YouTube that you can search for. There's also the Headspace app that a lot of people like that's very helpful, or there are podcasts. So the one that I really like is called Mindful in Minutes, and I forget her name. I think her name is Kelly, but she has so many meditations. She has a meditation for like every situation. And my favorite meditation of hers is actually a self-healing meditation that I really like to listen to when my digestion isn't feeling like 100%. To just kind of like visualize like calming the inflammation and like calming all the symptoms. So I really like that one, and I'm gonna link it down below for you guys. She also does some pretty cool walking meditations. So I'll like combine the walking and the meditating like into one to kind of like be more efficient with all of this stuff, which is something that you might want to try also if you are very busy and trying to fit all of this like health stuff into your day. It can be very helpful. So obviously meditation has been shown to relieve stress, and it's also been shown to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is what all of this is about. There have been studies that have shown the self-healing meditation to actually be very effective. So I would really recommend trying that. Okay, now so for my last and probably most important tip is to get a good night's sleep. Now, I am not naturally a good sleeper, so I know that this is much easier said than done. In a meta-study that compared 2,500 studies and over 60,000 participants with IBS, they found that the vast majority of people with IBS also suffer from sleep disturbances, most notably insomnia. I definitely do. So they've also found that sleep disturbances have been shown to increase symptoms in the following days and weeks after having them. They can actually lead to a much worse quality of life, which Nobody wants that. So sleeping better is actually gonna be like probably, maybe not the most, but like one of the most helpful things that you can do to help manage your IBS. But like I said, easier said than done. So what are a few of the things that we can do to actually help improve our sleep? One of the things that happens when our sleep gets disturbed is that our circadian rhythm gets disturbed. And your circadian rhythm is your body's natural alarm clock. So you're producing certain hormones in the morning when it's time to get up, and you're producing certain hormones at night when it's time to sleep. For a lot of people, that can get switched off, can get like switched to like backwards. So a way that we can re-regulate that is to make sure that we get sun exposure within 15 minutes of waking up. So if you wanted to take your walk in the morning to help to re-regulate your sleep schedule, that is definitely something that would be a good thing to do. I don't always get to have my walks in the morning, but sometimes what I will do is I will sit outside when I have my tea, or when I'm having breakfast or reading in the morning. And that sun exposure, just getting that morning sun in my eyes, really helps to regulate my sleep and sleep better that night. You also want to limit your afternoon caffeine. So caffeine in general is not going to be good for your sleep cycle, but if you have to have it, make sure you are not ingesting any caffeine afternoon. That's very important. They say that it takes at least 8 hours for caffeine to reach its half-life, and so that means like after 8 hours you'll have half as much caffeine in your system as when you drink the caffeine, but after 8 hours you still have half the amount of caffeine in your system. So that's why if you're really having sleep problems, then you really just want to cut out the caffeine altogether for a while. But if that's not where you are in your life, I get it. Just make sure to limit your caffeine and to make sure you're not having it after noon. Another very helpful thing that we can do is try to actually go and have a walk or go outside during sunset. I think this ambient light is another thing that can really help to balance and reset our circadian rhythm and signal to our bodies that it's time to let go of the day, it's time to relax, and time to like get into that mode of preparing our brains to sleep. Another really helpful thing is to stay off electronics the hour before you go to sleep. And I know this can be really, really difficult to do. Like, I'm terrible at this, but one of the things that I have done is I set my phone and my computer to night shift mode, which is when they change the temperature of the light being emitted from the screen from a blue light to a warmer incandescent light that kind of like mimics like candlelight or like sunset. So it's like less harsh on your brain. I think that's something that we can all do that will have a significant effect on our sleep. And lastly, probably the most important tip is to have a bedtime routine. Something that helps to signal to your brain that it's time to wind down, it's time to let go of the day, it's time to get ready for bed. So for me, I love making my bed in the morning, and then in the evening when I unmake my bed, it totally signals to my brain like, okay, it's time for bed. And I really think that this is super important for when we're stuck inside our houses in quarantine all the time, spending lots of time in our bedrooms doing other things other than sleeping. It can really help to signal to the brain like, okay, the bed is unmade, it's time to sleep. So I would really recommend finding a bedtime routine that works for you. Whatever kind of routine that you want to have, like whatever would make you feel like you're able to unwind and that you've really had the day that you want to have, because it's so much better when you're laying in bed, when you're like, oh, I had a great day today. You're not like sitting there and you've got like all these thoughts in your head, like, oh, I didn't do what I wanted to do today. And you're just kind of like laying there stressed. So I usually like to, do my skincare routine. I will, read and journal, things like that. But again, do whatever works for you. Okay, guys, that was it. Those are my top tips for improving your digestive health. So now I'm really excited. Let's get into our giveaway. Okay, so let me bring over my giant basket of stuff. Oh, all right, guys. I have this giant basket of stuff that I have compiled for you guys. These are all my favorite low FODMAP gluten-free products, as well as a few convenience foods that I don't typically eat, but I think that it would be really interesting for you guys to try. So I've got some of my favorite gluten-free flour. We've got my favorite gluten-free pastas, absolutely the best. And we've got a few FODMAP products. We've got some salad dressings here. I've got some ketchup, spices. I've even got a gluten-free Twix bar, which is like, I don't know, like that's not really like something that I typically go for, but it's nice to have a little treat every now and then. Ooh, I also have this cute little notebook for you guys to have like a food journal. So I really wanted to put this basket together for you guys because it has been a year of making low FODMAP recipe tutorials for you guys. And the feedback has been amazing. I really appreciate that you guys appreciate what I'm doing and the information that I'm trying to share with you. And I really did go through the ringer with my health and with IBS in general. And I really, really want to share this diet with you guys because it really did change my life. So I'm so glad that you guys are into it. And I just wanted to say thank you. So for this giveaway today, to enter, I want you to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and then in the comments, I want you to write "beat the bloat" in the comments, and then go over to my Instagram, find the post for today. My Instagram is Groceries. Find the post for today, like it, and tag a friend that you think that has stomach issues and that could really help from the kind of content that I create. And the more friends that you tag, the more entries that you will have in our giveaway. So I will be announcing the winner of the giveaway on March 31st. So stay tuned for that. I will be announcing it on Instagram. And again, just thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for watching my videos, subscribing to my channel, and really supporting what I'm trying to do here to help you guys. So again, one more time, the directions for the giveaway is to type "beat the bloat" in the comments down below on this video, go to my Instagram, find today's post, like it, and tag a friend. Tag as many friends as you like, and stay tuned for the winner on March 31st. All right, guys, I know this has been a super long video, but thank you so much for watching all the way to the end, and I will see you guys next time.